come Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, one time or the other, we had a presidential clinic in Aso Rock. When the president was sick, he was flown abroad. State funds were being spent for his medical trip and for his medical treatment. Till date, they have not told Nigeria how much that was being spent.
I'm joined by Ignatius Mefino, a public affairs analyst and researcher. So where should the line be drawn? Must leadership always be physically present in times of crisis? Or can effective governance transcend borders? That is the question before us this morning. I welcome you, Mefino. Good morning.
Good morning, Yimi.
Good morning to you.
I was so delighted with that intro.
Thank you.
The first duty of a leader is not to travel to the world, but to secure the world within its borders. It's philosophical.
Okay, but Ofino, some persons have argued that past president, just like I mentioned in my intro, Goodluck, Ebele Jonathan, and even Buhari, they still traveled even when Nigeria was experiencing insecurity, insurgency, and things like that. So they are saying Tinubu's visit or trip is not out of the law.
There is nothing wrong about what we call international diplomacy. You have to build bridges across the world, not walls. I repeat again, there is nothing wrong about international diplomacy. Countries must learn to build bridges across the world and not walls.
Okay.
Now, that is why you see independent nations having embassies in almost all countries of the world in order to ensure that we have what we call unity in the world. And that is what we call global diversity. But it's rather sad and unfortunate that in our own part of the world, the excesses are there on the part of the leader. How come Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, one time or the other, we had a presidential clinic in Aso Rock? When the president was sick, he was flown abroad. State funds were being spent for his medical trip and for his medical treatment. Till date, they have not told Nigeria how much that was being spent. Foreign currencies. It does not speak well.
Well, some Nigerians, especially members of the ruling party, are saying if the president decided to cancel this trip, it might look unserious, especially to the United Kingdom, because this visit was already planned for.
There is one thing you must know. Nigerians elected Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as GCFR because he was elected by Nigeria to be the Nigerian leader. So a president that is sensitive must have no choice than to return home. That is how to express empathy to the people that voted for you. I cannot just wake up this morning and say, Ofino Ignatius Eboselume is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is treasonable felony. The DSS will definitely come to this studio to arrest me. But we are talking about a president that was duly elected by the good citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And there is a bombing in one part of the country. If the president has decided to return home, that shows that the president has expressed what we call empathy. That shows that the president is a good leader. That shows that the president is a compassionate leader. His host will definitely share in that grief.
Okay.
But we have leaders that do not care anymore to what happened to the rest of us. So Nigeria must make a rethink when it comes to the issue of general election. And I keep saying it over and over again. No country can become an island unto itself. You have to learn to build what? Bridges, diplomatic bridges. That is why in every country of the world, there is what we call foreign policies when it comes to the issue of public governance. Apart from internal affairs, there is what we call external affairs. That is why we have what we call foreign embassies. That is why we have what we call foreign policies of your government. Okay, so this is just unfortunate that when Mr. President was being invited to the United Kingdom, there was a bombing in Maiduguri. And Maiduguri happened to be one of the state capitals in Nigeria.
Some are even saying maybe it was intentional on the part of the bombers.
If you are saying that it was intentional or not intentional, there is one thing you must know. The image of the country is at stake. Then the reputation of Mr. President is also at stake. He has an ambition for a second term in office. There was one time the king of pop released an album. They don't really care about us anymore. I'm talking about no other person than Michael Jackson of blessed memory. He was calling the attention of the American government to prison inmates that were not well treated. Michael Jackson was telling the government of America that even though these people have committed a crime, even though they were prison inmates, they are still citizens of America. And their dignity must be protected.
Okay, if, let's also talk about, certain persons that travel to the UK to receive the president, because most Nigerians are rolling their eyes because of that. Some governors actually went there to receive the president. We have the governor of Lagos State, Katsina, Zamfara, that's Dauda Lawa, was there, Enugu, Akwa Ibom, Plateau State, and of course, along some other ministers. And then most importantly, the Minister of Defense was also there to welcome the president. And the Nuri Badu, according to report, was also there to welcome the president at a time when we had strategic bombing in Maiduguri in 3 strategic places, teaching hospital, the Monday market, and of course around the post office area.
The problem we are having in this country is what we call misplaced priorities on the part of our leaders. The most secure citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is no other person than His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. The rest of us are no longer secured. Is it supposed to be? Without our mandate, he would not have become the president of Nigeria. Because of the people's mandate, that is why he can travel abroad and also be recognized as the leader of Nigeria. Because the people decided to vote for him as their leader. But look at it now. The people are in distress. They are in distress. NSA, National Security Advisor to the President, definitely he must be part of the trip. Because the life of the President must never be put in jeopardy. But what about the lives of Nigerians? Must the life of the Nigerians too be put into jeopardy? No.
Okay, are you saying the defense minister should also travel with the president?
What happened? It was a misplaced priority.
Okay.
Now we have the Minister of Defense. Then we have what called the Minister of State for Defense. 2 of them didn't travel. It was only one of them that traveled.
Does that suffice? I mean, in a time where something serious was going on in
so long it was only one of them that traveled. I don't think anything is wrong about that.
Okay.
Because when you're talking about your president, you must secure the life of your president too. Nothing more happened to him. As the president, he represents the totality of your country. When you see His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, you cannot separate Nigeria from him. I, Ignatius, I'm not the president of Nigeria. If I should be invited into an international summit today, they will just say, I'm just a delegate. But when they see Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they see Nigeria being represented in that meeting. So he was invited for a state visit. So there is nothing wrong if the Minister of Defense decides to go with the president. There would have been a problem if both of them went, the Minister of Defense and the Minister of State for Defense. That would have been an error in arrangement or an error in principle.
Okay, speaking of the Minister of Defense now, some Nigerians are saying the president gave some orders to say, okay, let the service chiefs, let them go to Borno and, of course, arrest the situation. So those that were available in Nigeria, Nigerians are saying, how are they supposed to carry out, those, orders that the president gave when the Minister of Defense is out in the UK?
Mr. President was supposed to lead by example. He's the Grand Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Grand Commander-in-Chief must not stay in the bedroom. No. He must go to the battlefield.
Do you think
in ancient times, kings used to go to battles?
Okay. I read some tweets yesterday and some Nigerians are calling for the entrenchment of this law in the constitution to say if there's maybe bombing attack in the country or maybe insurgency, it should be entrenched in the constitution that the president must postpone any foreign trip.
Let's assume there are bombings on a daily basis. Are you saying that Nigeria will not be able to play its role as a member nation of the United Nations? No. Are you saying that?
No, Nigerians are saying
Let's
that.
assume there are bombings on a daily basis. Every second there are bombings in Nigeria. Are you going to say that the president must not perform his role when it comes to issue of international duty in respect to foreign policies? The foreign policies is there. That is why we are having what we call foreign embassies. What about Nigerians in the diaspora?
Okay, some Nigerians are saying they are not even seeing the dividend of these foreign trips. Can you point to any benefit of this foreign trip so far?
Probably you have to blame the president for it. Probably he does not have a strong bargaining power. There is no morality in international politics. Diplomacy is a lie. What do you stand to gain? Sometimes your host determine, they impose their own terms on you. That has been the issue. Probably they were imposing their own terms on Nigeria. And Nigerian president actually does not really understand the politics and intrigues involved in international politics and diplomacy. As the president, you must tell them that you cannot impose your own term on us. Tell us your own term. We are also going to tell you our own term too. Then we reach a consensus. There will be a trade-off and a compromise. That is how to do it. What about the issue of foreign direct investment? You want my oil. I want your technology. That is how it should be. I have crude oil, natural resources. You have the technology. So there must be technology transfer. You are gaining. I'm also gaining. But when you are saying that you only need my oil and you refuse to give me the technology, that shows that you are only gaining. Me, I'm losing. So you have to understand the intrigues and the politics involved in international affairs. That is why I like this subject called political economy. When we are talking about political economy, it means what? The study of political science plus economics. So the president of any country must understand political science and economics. When you are talking about economics, how do you run the economy? When you are talking about political science, you are talking about how do I govern the people?
Okay, Ofino, let's take a look at the tweet. The president tweeted in 2014, I read, Nigeria's security situation is precarious. Nigerians are tired of excuses and explanations. They want protection for their lives and property. If you put that side by side with what is going on in Nigeria today, how valid is that statement, that tweet that he made in 2014?
That tweet he made, actually, the president has now shot himself on the leg. The president is overwhelmed. So when you are talking about national security, you should declare what we call a national state of emergency on the issue of what? Security in Nigeria. Assuming, there is one thing you must know about politicians. Politicians in Nigeria, some of them always exaggerate facts. The president is there in the corridor of power now. He's in charge. When he was not in charge, he has every right to say whatever he wants to say. If I'm there, this is what I'm going to do. But now he's there. What is he actually doing? I remember when APC government were boasting that when we take over power in 2015, we will ensure that within 6 months there is nothing going to be called Boko Haram anymore. Buhari was elected, but what happened? He became helpless. He was overwhelmed. You don't lie under oath. It's just like the issue of a stable power supply. The president assured Nigerians that if I'm elected as the president and I do not give you stable power supply for 4 years, if I ask for a second term, don't give it to me. The ball now lies in the court of Nigeria to decide who governs them in 2027.
Okay, Fino, let's talk about the Benue attack that happened last year. The president visited Benue but could not get to Yewata where the massacre happened because of the bad road. So some Nigerians are saying, especially the loyalists of the president, to say even if the president is around, even if he decides to suspend his trip, it might still not change much. Do you agree with that?
That is a flimsy excuse on the part of the president. The president has a private jet. He has a private jet. Sometimes politically, the president, during general election, before he became the president was flying around from one state to the other within the southwest region.
Okay.
The president knows that in Lagos, the Lagos state vote has been secured for him. Sometimes the president will now fly down to your state. Sometimes he flies down to Osun to go and monitor that election. I'm talking about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, let alone Yewata, as the sitting president. There was a genocide in that place. You are now complaining of bad road. Who is supposed to fix the bad road? Is it Ofino that's supposed to fix the road? Or the president himself, who was duly elected? We have to be honest to ourselves. The president has a private jet. The private jet can also land on the soil of Yewata. The people will be happy that the president is trying to express empathy with them. So the excuses he gave, those excuses are flimsy and unacceptable.
Okay. Let's conclude now, because some persons have made comparison with the military heads of state in the past, and then because they were heads of state and of course the commander-in-chief, so most of them reduced their maybe trips maybe from 3 days to 2 days or just 1 day, just so they can come back home to solve the matter. So what do you think democratic elected president should do differently in terms of
it wasn't like that during the days of military.
Okay.
The West does not recognize military government. Okay. That was why most of the military head of state of Nigeria were not being invited for international summits.
Well, some still traveled regardless.
Not all.
Okay.
Some of them traveled in disguise.
Okay.
But when you are talking about a democratically elected president, he can be invited to any part of the world for an international summit.
Okay, so just so we can conclude, how do you think they should respond to issues like this going forward? Because most Nigerians are not comfortable with the president, being in the UK.
The president must learn to stay at home with his people. He should identify with them, identify with their plight, find a way of solving solution. There was one time they were accusing Alhaji Atiku Abubakar that it seems as if he's one of the citizens of Dubai. He was always domiciled in Dubai. I think now Alhaji Atiku Abubakar now is now domiciled in Nigeria. Probably because for political reasons. So our leaders must learn to be domiciled in the country called Nigeria.
All right. I think epic thank you to you, Ofino. We need to go.
Thank you, Yimi, for having me this morning.
All right. Leadership is tested not in comfort, but in a moment when a nation looks for reassurance. And of course, you've been listening to The Big Story with me, Oluwayemi Adelako, alongside our guest Ignatius Bosalome Ofino, a public affairs analyst and researcher. From Goodluck Jonathan to Muhammadu Buhari and now Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Nigeria's story reveals a consistent tension between global responsibility and domestic urgency. In a global age, international engagement is inevitable, even necessary. But for citizens facing insecurity and uncertainty, presence is not just physical, it is symbolic. It reassures, it connects, and it leads. The challenge, therefore, is not choosing one over the other, but striking a balance that reflects both competence abroad and compassion at home. And that balance remains the true test of leadership. Thank you for being a part of Big Story today. We take a short break, and when we come back, we conclude the program. Please stay with us.